Let's talk about tax collectors for a second. I know that's not the thing that necessarily keeps you up at night, but it's really interesting when you consider who a tax collector was and how that adds so much value to the readings of Jesus eating with these tax collectors. Okay, so first off, a tax collector works for the Roman government, but isn't actually a Roman citizen, right? That's part of the genius, the evil genius of the Roman Empire. They would take a nation that they were oppressing, like Jews, they would pluck somebody out and they would make them as like a puppet to do the dirty work. So think, as a Jew, somebody who you have grown up with, that you've recited scripture with, that might have been your neighbor, is now demanding you to pay money to them. And they were often considered as greedy, right? Because not only are they collecting the tax for the Roman government, but they got to decide how much of a cut that they got that day. So it's like, oh, well, today it's going to be 5%. I'm feeling 10%. Oh, I really want that new house, so 15%. And there was nothing that you as a Jew could do. You had to pay it. And if they didn't have the money, right, this Jew, this fellow Jew that now works for the Roman government had all the right in the world to public humiliate you and do some cruel things, slap you in the face, and it got nasty, right? And so as a Jew, you look at these tax collectors and you think, these guys are traitors, right? These are scumbags. This is the worst of the worst, right? They betrayed their own people, and they're just trying to work for the government, to be protected, and to protect their own pockets, right? They're greedy, which makes this interaction with Jesus in Matthew chapter 9, so fascinating, right? So Jesus walks up to this tax collector booth, right? Matthew's doing his job, right? Getting on everybody's bad side, and he says, "Come, follow me," right? And Matthew does it. And then the very next passage, and here's where it gets really fascinating. The very next passage, Jesus is eating with these tax collectors, right? He tells Matthew, "Hey, go get all your slimy, your greedy friends. Let's get them together and let's have a meal together." And Matthew says, "Okay." He convinces them for some reason, and they're all having this meal together. And what's fascinating, not only is Jesus eating this meal with them, which is what we often focus on, right? Jesus was willing to be with people not like him, people who were the enemy, so on and so forth. But what I found fascinating was that these people wanted to be with Jesus. Think about that. No, really, just take a moment and think about that, right? They knew, they had to have known, right? Because Jesus was very outspoken about the kingdom and what he was about. They had to know that Jesus stood against everything that they stood for, right? He didn't believe in their practice. He thought that they were probably greedy. And yet, he was willing to have a meal with them, and they wanted to have a meal with him, right? And it's mind-blowing if you consider, because Jesus was able to show them things that they weren't getting somewhere else. Acceptance. Maybe it was love. Maybe it's a hope. Maybe it's some kind of teaching they never heard before, right? And so now consider where this applies in your life. Yeah, it's easy to be a person, to say to yourself, okay, I'm a follower of Jesus. I need to look at these people who are not like me, and I need to learn to love them. Okay, that's a simple teaching. Now look at the reverse side. And we don't often do this. Do people who know that you may not agree with them, maybe it's political, maybe it's some kind of social issue, maybe it's some kind of economic difference, right? You are not on the same playing field, right? And despite those differences, they still want to be around you. Just think of somebody. If you're like me, you're having troubles, right? There's not many people in my life that aren't like me in some way, or think the way I do, or act the way I do, or have a faith the way I do, right? That are in my life. I'm often pushing them away. But Jesus said, these are the people that I want to be with, and guess what? They want to be with me. There was something special about Jesus, something remarkable about Jesus, and he calls us into that same mission, into that same way of life. It's pretty fascinating. From learning about tax collectors to learning that these tax collectors wanted to be with Jesus, and trying to get ourselves in that mindset. There's more about this in my blog on this. You can find that blog in the show notes. I dig into some of the details. I talk about a coin that is used for these interactions with tax collectors and Jews. There's a fascinating coin that is basically slapped in the face every day that a Jew is looking at that. And I dig into some more details that may be a little more personal to you. You can find all of that, again, using the link in the show notes, or you can go to my blog at peytonmensmeyer.com. There you can find this blog, past blogs, past videos, and all my other content that I'm producing. Until next time, we'll see you later.